right, welcome to the 8th Lane podcast.
Thank you.
Today we have Anna with us. Why don't you give us a little introduction about who you are and what you do?
Wow. Okay. Well, my name's Anna DeMonte. I am from Ann Arbor, Michigan originally, and I moved to Salt Lake in 2020. And I grew up as a college swimmer. So I was a swimmer for most of my life, always in athletics, and then a competitive cyclist. But then I had a pretty bad spine injury.
Was that from cycling or?
It's kind of unclear. It might have been from heavy lifting in college, heavy weightlifting, because swimming is a non-impact sport.
Mm-hmm.
And we were lifting kind of heavy Olympic, like deadlifts and things like that. But the big bulge that ruptured happened during cycling.
Oh, okay.
And I lost all feeling in my right leg within like a couple hours. Yeah, it was really intense. And at the time I was hoping to move to a UCI team, like become a pro cyclist. And that's when I lived in North Carolina. But after that, I had the surgery. I had a couple bad complications. I had to lay on my back for a month straight. I had a cerebrospinal fluid leak from the surgery. I know this is all.
As an athlete, that's like the worst thing you can hear is like lay on your back for a month.
It was really, really hard. But, and my body changed a lot in the month I did nothing. And then after that month, I really struggled because I just started walking. And that was in 2017. And then in 2019, I thought I might be happier somewhere in the mountains because I wasn't able to compete anymore. Like my swimming career was over. Cycling kind of was not an option because of my back surgery. And I liked mountain biking. Like that was something I could do. But I didn't really ski at all. I didn't run at all. I just thought, I think I'd be happier in the mountains. So I moved to Salt Lake in 2020.
Did you have like connections with Salt Lake before? Like, had you been out here? Okay.
Yes, I have some family here. Actually, my aunt is Caroline Gleick.
Oh, cool.
You might know her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she, when I first moved here, was super helpful. She helped me learn how to ski a lot and showed me some of like the easier ski tours. And so I did know people here, but I was kind of considering here and like Boulder. Mm-hmm. But I had some family here, so Salt Lake was an easy choice.
I feel like I like Salt Lake more than Boulder.
I do too.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, the access. I mean, everyone says the access, but it's true. It is better. So
yeah.
But I love it. I love Salt Lake.
Yeah, so your transition from like swim to mountain athlete is crazy. Like I want to get into that a little bit later. But I want to start out the podcast just talking about your recent ski FKT of Mount Blanc.
Yay!
Congratulations. That's
you.
Such a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. I'm
Yes.
still like, I am still surprised by the whole thing. It was just like a big project, and it took months. And I still feel like I'm working on it, even though it's over. Like I still think I'm going up the trail. Like,
it's like still going through.
Yeah, it was, but it was really fun. Like now that it's over, I appreciate the body of work that it took to make it happen.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
So maybe start by explaining like what the route looks like to everyone who's listening.
Okay.
Because there are lots of like transitions and
Yes.
like crazy technical aspects that you wouldn't think of.
Yeah.
And then we can get into like what the planning looked like, how
Yeah.
you started to tackle it.
Okay, yeah, so the route is pretty iconic. It starts from the town in Chamonix at the church. It's this beautiful church right at the center of town. And you run through the town, up a trail about 3,000 feet, like 1,000 meters. If you want to be European, I still talk in feet, even though I've been told I need to switch to meters, but I'm still speaking in feet. It's like 3,000 feet on trail. And then there's kind of like a cut through.
How many miles is that little piece from the church to?
I have no idea.
You're like, I'm talking vertical feet here. Okay.
I know. It's like, I think it took me an hour to get to Snowline.
Okay.
So
maybe like 3-ish, maybe
maybe
a little
3
under.
miles.
Okay.
All I was thinking about was running up it as fast as I could. So yeah, it's like about maybe 3 miles, and the trail is it's got switchbacks. It's kind of wet, rooty, and then this cut through to get onto the glacier is kind of exposed. There's some videos of it. It's not very well traveled. Like it's not the common way people go. It's very much, I think it was previously part of maybe like a resort where people used to ski in that area, but now the glacier is like very receded. But it's kind of like a little break that gets to the glacier, and from there, you take off your backpack, you put your skis on, you put your shoes away, and you start skinning
over the glacier.
So yeah, I guess it's on the glacier at that point, but it's not for a little while until you get to the very crevassed zone.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's. Oh, I wish I knew exactly.
You're like, I can see it. I can.
Yeah. It's 3,000 feet to get to the cut through, and then I think it's another 5,000 feet of skinning to get to the Grand Malay hut.
Okay.
But before that, I could be a little bit off with the vert. But before that, you have to cross what's called the junction. And that is where these two glaciers that are on Mount Blanc. And for those people who don't know Mount Blanc, I didn't know anything about it when I went there, to be honest. It's very glaciated. There are seracs you can hear falling all the time. I think that was maybe the scariest thing. So the junction is where these two glaciers are kind of colliding, and there's a lot of debris that's being churned up. And we had done the route many times throughout the year, and it always looked a little different every time. So that section, the junction, to cross it was kind of a crux, if you will. And then from there, you skin up past this hut. And then another crux is you have to skin under a very large serac.
Oh my gosh, that's horrifying.
And there are a few ways to the top of Mont Blanc, but this route is called the Grand Malay route, and it's typically the route that a lot of the ski records have been done, and the route that I think Killian took, and Pierre Jeannot and Stéphane Brosse back in 2003, they took the Grand Malay. And it's called the Petit Plateau, this area where there's a big serac, and it's just notorious for shedding. And I think not last year, but the year before, maybe a couple people were killed there. Yes. So we really had to be, well, we can talk about this later, but we had to be really careful about when we did that section and got beta for it. So once you're through the Petit Plateau area, you get up to the Grand Plateau. And from there, you kind of swing right and you hit the ridge. And at the ridge, you put crampons on, you put your skis on your back, and I think it's 1,500 feet to get to the top. And that ridge is not super safe either. There's like crevasses, and the first time we did it, we had to protect a pitch with ice screws, which like I can ice climb, but I don't know, it was kind of intense. So then you skied all the way down from the north face. It's like kind of like the typical.
And how was the ski for you? Is that really technical? Is that something that you were pretty comfortable with?
To be honest, the ski was amazing. It was so fun. It was like, the snow was really good on the day we did it. There's like a little bergstrand you have to jump over on these little ski-mo skis. You feel really cool. You're like on these tiny like 154s. For me, that's like the shortest ski you can get. And I like went over the bergstrand, and I was feeling really free ride. But it was really fun. And then getting back to the cut through kind of sucks, just because the snow at that point had been warmed up. It's like very mushy, and there's some glide cracks. It's just like you have to be heads up to get back to where you're gonna run down. So,
and do you cut, like you ski down, do you cut back to kind of where you traversed the glacier, or? Yes. Okay.
It was like a complete out and back.
Okay.
So you go down. Well, actually not complete. So you go up the ridge and then you ski directly down the north face. But
And
then
then
from there you go back
Okay.
the normal way. So that was kind of a long-winded answer to the route question, but
So getting there, you guys got there in February.
yes.
And what did you start doing? You didn't stay in the town, right?
No. So my original plan was I was really interested in skiing some of the more technical ski lines. But it proved pretty quickly that you can't really have two objectives when people are living in a van. Like you really kind of have to be on the same schedule. And the more I saw Mont Blanc and how much culture it has in the town, the more I was interested in doing a record time. So what we kind of did when we got there, we weren't sure when this would go, like what month. We knew like some people had done it in April. We knew like Hillary Girardi, I think, did it in June running. They had a pretty good snow year up high, and we were totally like, we had no idea what would happen. And originally we thought we would be doing the record in April-ish. So we got there very early in February, and we spent our time in Chamonix and then in Cervinia, Italy. And that's because Cervinia is a little bit higher. And so it was for altitude. I think it was a little higher than 7,000 feet. And we would go there to train and sleep high while Chamonix maybe didn't have the best weather.
Okay.
So we really spent our time split between those two places.
We're excited to announce our first podcast sponsor, Kreatures of Habit. They have a great overnight oat product called Meal One. There's a ton of different flavors, and each flavor has just about 30 grams of plant-based protein. You put it in the fridge the night before, take it out the morning of, and you have a nice balanced breakfast to fuel you for your workout. If you use our code STORER at creaturesofhabit.com, you get 10% off. And we'd also like to thank our sponsor, Coach Soak. Coach Soak is a brand that focuses on athletes' recovery. Their products have magnesium flakes, mineral-rich sea salts, and essential oils in them that will help aid you in their recovery. These products come in lotions, sprays, and bath salts. If you use code STORER at checkout, that will get you 10% off. Yes. So you did lots of like conditioning training in Italy, but then to kind of like scout the route, practice the route too, you went over.
Yes. And there's like, we went up into other areas in Chamonix, like the Argentière Basin. There's some amazing ski lines. And in Chamonix, there's obviously like the Aiguille du Midi, which is the big lift that takes you up, and then a lot of the terrain is lift access.
Oh, cool.
But we didn't want to buy any tickets, so we walked up everything, and I really think that helped our fitness. Yeah, because we would walk just to get to where most people were starting their tours. We had to walk like 3,000 feet all the time. So we basically did a lot of Argentière Basin, and then a lot of scouting the Grand Malais route, like the bottom, the middle, the top. Like that's what we focused on in Chamonix a lot. And that took everything to do that, like every bit of energy and focus.
So which was the getting there, which was the scariest part for you? Or what were you most nervous for?
On the actual route
Grand Malais route, yeah.
I think the junction. See, Jack said it really well. He said on any given day that we went up there, there were like 5 things that could be the most scary. And every time we went up there, it was like pick 2 from the bag, and that's what was the worst that day. So one of either the junction, the arête that was super icy. Like if you fell there, you were done. Like,
so was it just like so sheer that falling was like not an option, or
on the arête part? Yeah. So the first time we summited, I think in March, we were like one of the only people there, and we had to protect it with ice. So like I put in ice screws and I belayed Jack up. And if you fell on one of those ice screws, like you're falling down into the ether, and it's like an ice climb. It's ice. And so even then, when you unrope after that ice section, It's very exposed. It's just you cannot fall.
My stomach like is sinking right now thinking about that.
That first time we did it was obviously very early in the season, but it actually really psyched us out because we thought there's like no way we can do this fast. Like everything was scary and hard, and but as the season goes by and more tourists come, there's a hut. So more people put in the track, more people put in kind of steps on that ice section. It became a lot more digestible. And but on the day of, I think the junction was all right. It was just the day we actually did the FKT, it was very icy, and that was very difficult. It was icy like the whole way up, and other times I had done the route, it wasn't icy. And so it was a little bit tough to be skinning up something so slow when I knew how much better it had been. But that's just mountains. Like, I think you can't get everything right on any given day. Like, the ski down was great, but the way up was really terrible. So I definitely learned that, especially with Mount Blanc. I mean, you start, it's hot, you're in the town, you're running up like a trail, and then all of a sudden you're on this alpine glacier, and it's like totally different. So it's an objective that has a lot of layers, and that made it really challenging, I think, and scary.
Yeah. So I think I heard that you guys had attempted before, like in May or something, there was an attempt. Tell me about that.
Yes. I wouldn't remember the exact date, I think, but 2 weeks prior to the actual FKT day, we saw a weather window. And that, I think, the weather was a big challenge because it was like there wasn't a lot of sunny days, and you really need a sunny day on Mont Blanc to do that record. And so we were just looking at windows, and it became very stressful. And we saw this one decent day, and we were like, okay, we're going to go for it. Jack's parents were in town, and so we both thought that would be the day, and I actually did the whole thing from the church to the top, but it was not great. Like, I had to put the whole skin track in by myself, and I was the only person that skied the North Face that day. Oh. And I actually felt that a little bit upset after, because I don't think that was a great decision to keep going for me. I think there were a lot of risks being there alone, putting in a track on a glacier by yourself. And so after that first attempt, Jack bailed like pretty early on.
What made Jack bail?
So this is very interesting. There was not a refreeze that night.
Oh, okay.
So he felt like the refreeze on the lower section of the mountain was very important because of like crevasses opening up and things like that. And if it didn't refreeze, it could be more dangerous. Also, that cut through section when you enter the glacier had some glide cracks. But I started about an hour before him. And so I think that when he got there, it had melted a little bit more than when I was there. So I crossed that section earlier, and I didn't think it was that soft, if that makes sense. So by the time he got there, I think it was a little bit more slushy, and he didn't feel good about it, but I was already well past that area. But on my way down, I totally saw what he was talking about, and I felt like I just need to get through this as fast as possible and safely. So that's why he bailed. And I mean, it was a good ski that day. I don't know if it was worth the physical output of an 8.5 hour effort.
Yeah.
When we were going to do it again in 2 weeks, because I don't think I was totally recovered
for sure. No.
Yeah. But it was fun.
Yeah.
And it was cool to have done the whole, like, put all the pieces together. I just don't think it was the right day to go for it. And but I learned a lot.
So did you change anything from that day to 2 weeks later? Like, you had someone put in skin tracks. Tell me about like your plan going into this route. Like, what did you do what were your rules for yourself to make
yeah.
it like self-supported or?
Yeah, so I just like being self-sufficient, and I wanted to carry all my stuff, and I wanted to be unaccompanied on the route. There was like a film crew there, or there was one person. So the route does have a lot of tourists or other climbers there that are guided. So it's not like it was just Jack and I on the mountain.
Yeah.
But as far as you're asking, like what I changed from the first time to the second time, was that what you asked?
Yeah. And then also just like the stipulations of,
okay.
I'm going to carry everything type of deal.
The only big difference was the first time I just took the opposing ridge called the corridor to the top, because we had talked to some people who had done it the day before, and they said that there was a skin track in.
Oh, okay.
But the day I actually went there, it was so windy that there was no skin track. And so I went up that way with pretty good confidence that there would be a track. And Jack's plan was to do that as well, but then there wasn't. It was just a faint kind of line. And every turn, I kind of thought that there would be a track just over this next little section. Like maybe this area got a little bit of wind, but there was no track to the top. Although I did catch up to some people on the ridge, which was very heartwarming.
Yeah.
So the day we did it, we took the more classic way, which is the arête de bosse. And that is the one where you have to boot with crampons on. So the first time I skinned the whole way on that other ridge, but that's the only route change we made.
What did you prefer?
I liked the classic way. I mean, I think not having to transition the first time was really nice. But this arête de bosse is like, that's the way everyone's done it. It's really beautiful. There's like these two humps that you have to walk over. It's just like more aesthetically pleasing, I think.
Okay.
So I like that. And also I like the technical side of mountaineering, skiing, climbing, running. And so I like having to put the crampons on and go up the ice. Like that is where I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this.
And so I think maybe the other way was easier.
Okay.
But I was more stoked about the ice.
Crampons.
Yeah.
Cool.
I will say. And then your second question about the style, right?
Yeah.
That was really just I wanted to carry all my gear from the start to the finish, and I didn't want to be roped up. And I think that's just because I saw other people who had done that in the past with skis, and I just wanted to stay true to that style. And I felt like it was safe. We both felt like it was safe to do because we had done the route so many times. And there was a point actually a week before we did the attempt that we crossed the junction, and I said, no, you need to put a rope on. We need to put a rope on for this. Like, I don't feel comfortable because it was opening so much. And I did consider then, like, maybe I do need to be roped up here for this next week when we do this. But it changes so much. Like this mountain is moving, the weather is changing, the junction is changing. And so we went back, I think the day before our FKT or two days before, just to look at the junction. And we were so nervous because we were thinking like maybe it's not gonna. I mean, if you think logically, 2 weeks or a week later, it probably opened up more, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we were expecting, but we went up there with like full kit, ropes, like everything to figure out a way through. We were ready to like quest a different way so we could make this happen, and there was a nice way that you could go through with boots on that was very safe. And it was like,
that's so cool.
Both of us, the relief was like, we were like, we're ready, we can do this now.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a relief, I think, when we went. Yeah.
So choosing, like, I bet it was super helpful to have Jack with you because you're both working on this project. You kind of both have to figure out a way up the mountain as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Who do you think was the most helpful in giving you advice? Or was it a lot of just figuring it out yourself?
Oh, we did have a lot of help. I think when we first got to France, it was hard at first. But I have to say, we stayed at the Grand Molay hut, which is on the route. And we stayed there the first time, and we were late to dinner because at these huts they have dinner at a certain time. And I remember telling Jack, I was like, Jack, these huts, we need to get there by 6 or something. And we had skied this like line that I wanted to ski with these 3 huge rappels, and we were late. And I dropped my phone. We had to go back and get it. And we got there, and he was like, no, they're going to have dinner. And everyone was done eating dinner. And it was a bad first impression, I think. But it was really funny because then the next night we missed it again because they ask you, like, what time would you like breakfast? Because a lot of parties go for the summit at like 2 a.m., 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I remember I told Jack, I was like, go tell them dinner at 7 because I thought... But dinner's at 6, not 7. And so we're sitting in our little cot in the hut, and everyone else is eating dinner. And I turned to him and I said, why are we the only people not eating dinner? And turns out we missed dinner again.
Oh, dang it.
So we were very apologetic. But the hut, Ben, Karen, they are 2 people that they're like the hut guardians. We went back multiple times throughout the winter, and they were so helpful. I mean, they were encouraging. Like, there were times we were like, it's not going to go. The weather's been bad, the junction. And they both, once they found out we were both going for the record, they were so into it. And they were on the mountain all the time. So they gave us a lot of beta, and Jack would WhatsApp the hut all the time, like, how's the conditions? And so they were really helpful. And then they also put out bottles for us.
Oh, that's so nice.
So, and that was so sweet. And it's funny, after the FKT, we had to go back and get them from the hut. And seeing them again after we had tried, it was so therapeutic. Just like closing the loop. Like, both of us felt really happy. We got to thank them for everything. So I'd say the hut guardians at the Grand Molay, they were really helpful. And then Colin Haley, he's a climber, very well known, and he lives in Chamonix, and he is so funny. Jack and I, he'd always run into us when we were in we call it the Depresso Espresso. And we would go up there trying to find beta on the route, and every time we'd run into Colin, he'd be like, no, it's a great year for this. You guys have plenty of time. And every time after we talked to him, we were like, yeah, we got this. And then where we parked our van in Chamonix is right outside of his apartment. And so sometimes he'd knock on the door. And I remember one time we opened it and we were like, hey, we're not really in a good mood. And he was like, no, you guys got this. And then he'd leave and we'd both be like, yeah, we got this.
It's like your little guardian angel. That's so cute.
Oh my gosh. I called him our trail angel. And he really was. And he was very calm and he was really helpful to both of us. And then on the day of the FKT, he went up. And the idea was for him to put in a track. Though it was so icy, there were no tracks possible.
Dang it.
But we knew he was up there. And so... he was very helpful. Shout out to Colin. He was really nice. He's so nice. And even after we were done, we were all tired, and he was like, you guys should do this or that. He was just great. So he, I think, actually was a huge help to us. So those people were definitely the standouts. And then I will say, just people back home in Utah, I had been gone for a long time, and I was overwhelmed with how much people were checking in with me. And I mean, I guess that's not direct beta about the route, but that was really nice and helpful personally.
Yeah.
Just friends.
I mean, a huge aspect of self-supported routes and doing things alone is like believing in yourself. Yeah. And so like to have your friends and family and the people close to you like rallying from wherever they were, and to be able to feel that out there, probably gave you confidence to be able to do all the scary things that the day entailed.
Definitely. And we also met a couple guides. One of them is named Genus, and he was so funny. He was actually on the mountain the day of the route, and he was like, go! And he was cheering, and we would ask him a lot because he was on the route a lot with clients.
Yeah.
And so he was really helpful as well. So we did actually meet quite a few people. It just took being there and being on the mountain a lot and being like, actually, we're here and we're trying this for real. And I think we gained a lot of friends. And then the people that helped film as well, like I could name them all, but they were really great too. But they were more kind of coming in at the end. But yeah, it was and then I guess I have to say, Jack, I mean, having each other, I think really helped both of us because it is such a big undertaking, this objective, in my opinion. And there are so many parts that are scary. So just having each other to commiserate with when things were hard, and then to get pumped up when we were going to do it, and to go up like at the junction the day we went and we saw it was good. Just like, I think we really fed off each other, and having someone there that you were training with. And also, even though we did it separately, like, we were with each other. That's cheesy, but like when I saw Jack ski down on the day, I cried. Just because I was like, I don't know if this is gonna go very well. This skinning sucks.
Yeah.
But I saw him ski down because he passed me, and I saw him ski down. He was laughing, like skiing crazy, like he always does. And I just was so proud of him, and I think he probably felt the same about me. And you know, it takes a lot just to go up there. We're the only people up there by ourselves. And it's like, it's a lot. But, you know, I could not have done that without him. And I don't think we could have done that without each other.
Yeah, the photos of you coming in and like touching the church and then just like being with Jack. Like, tell me how you, like, what did that feel like, I guess?
Well, you know, that was a tough situation because at the final transition, I was looking at my watch and I was like, shit. This is going to be really close. I kind of took a little long on the transition. I wasn't super positive that it would even be as close as it was. Oh. Just because running with skis on your back, it hurts. Like, it's hard. And I didn't have a lot of time, but I knew I'd be kind of close. And I ran as fast as I could. Like, I barreled down this trail with these skis, with this helmet. Like, I mean, people in the town when I was running looked like they thought I was crazy. And
what was she late for?
I know. And we're not from there. So we didn't have like the big crowds of people like that you might see in some other kinds of FKT attempts. So Sammy was one of the photographers, and she was on her bike and trying to like get people out of the way. But I'm like looking really like rough, like running. And initially when I touched the church, I was kind of disappointed because it was a little bit slower than I wanted, but I was still at the same time like, wow, I actually went really fast. And when I saw Jack, I was overwhelmed with more positive feelings than negative. Like, the fact that we completed this was like, I could cry even just now. It was just like a really special thing. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's like such an insane accomplishment to like work toward for months, and then to be able to do it with someone that you love so much is crazy.
Yeah, I think it's just like there were so many ups and downs. Like, we thought about calling it off so many times because of the weather, the conditions. We didn't know if people would help. We didn't know there was a lot of questions. And then there were really great days too. But the stress, it was very stressful, and it was just a release, I think. And I was just so proud of him too.
Yeah.
So
So did you know, I mean, when did you find out? Because he missed his record by 3 minutes.
Yes.
You missed yours by 4. You guys were like right there.
I know. It kills me because like both of us. The thing is, it's so funny. We were both like very type A and like thinking about things. And the second he sat down, we both were just like, well, I could have done better here. Like, I think we could have gone faster with this. We were already scheming about like what could have done better. And he was so interested. What did you think about this, that? So it looks like it was a very emotional embrace, but very quickly after we were like scheming about what to do next, which is it's so nice to have someone like that because that's how I am. But what was the question? What was your question again? I don't remember. It was emotional.
You guys were both so close.
Yeah, it was just nice to be with him. And at the church, I think we were like, we're going to have to come back. And I think we will go back. So, yeah.
So, like, namely, your transitions, you said, could have been like a lot quicker. Would you have gone faster on the transitions had you known how close you were going to be?
Yes.
Okay. That sucks.
It's like, it kills me a little bit. Actually, the day afterwards, I kind of had a bit of a moment where I was very upset about this because I was a swimmer growing up and everything in swimming is detail. Like the way you put your hand in the water, the way you breathe, like all these little details are so important. And I know how to do that. But then on this record, I kind of took my time a little bit with some of the transitions, and Jack was like, "No, you cannot do that. Like, it's gonna come." Like, he's very methodical, and I mean, I've never really attempted an FKT like this before, so little things like where exactly your crampons are in your backpack, where exactly your skis are, like. Those are all details that I hadn't really considered before. And I did pretty good transitions, but I definitely, a couple of things, I probably would not have had a GoPro. I took a little bit of GoPro video. I definitely think that wasted more than 4 minutes. The transition into crampons, that was very slow. And
on purpose, just because you were...
No,
not on purpose, but like...
I think it was as fast as I thought I could go. But if someone was sitting there and they were like, you're going to be 4 minutes slower, I would have been like, like I would have like sped it up a little bit. So to me, and at the time, I was like, I'm doing this right. I'm going to get it right. I'd rather do it right than have the crampon fall off in 2 minutes. Or... I'd rather get the ski on the backpack so that it stays and I don't have to fix it, which is definitely a good point. But if someone was like, hey, you're going to miss this by 4 minutes. I mean, I did set the ski record, but, if I knew it was 4 minutes, I think maybe that would have been helpful. But I still think that's the beauty of it all. Like, there's things to fix. And I actually am inspired to go back and fix them.
Yeah. So just for our viewers to be clear, you set the FKT ski record for Mount Blanc.
Yes.
Missed the overall record by 4 minutes.
Yes.
And that's a run.
Yes. And I think this is interesting because in Jack's case, there was a pre-existing men's ski record, which he beat. There was no women's ski record. And so I really used Hillary's running record as a benchmark. I think it's considered the women's ski FKT, but I think I would like to go back and beat the overall FKT with skis on. So it was a success in that way, but I still think there's more to do there. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's such a crazy cool accomplishment.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I will say, at first, I was kind of not that interested in doing it because there was no women's ski time. And, Jack had Killian and Mateo. Killian had the running record, Mateo had the skiing record. And that is so I think I was almost a little jealous that there was a ski record to beat.
Because
to me, I was like, I don't want to have the OKT, the only known time.
Yeah, OKT.
You know, like to me, I was kind of like a little bit more like, that's an OKT. Like I didn't really think it was as notable to do.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a time. And I've really changed how I feel about that, because someone needs to put up a time for it to become something that more women do.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of mountains that a lot more men have these FKTs, or there's a long list of men that have done them, and either none or only a few women. And I would like that to change. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity for women. And so I definitely swung while we were on the trip from, I don't think that I want to do it, to I definitely want to put up a time. Even if there's not something to beat on skiing, like I want it to be competitive and I want it to be close to the overall time. So
yeah,
I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, something I thought was really cool too. I can't remember if it was in like the Scott piece they wrote on you, wherever it was. You had said that part of the reason you chose to do things the way that you did, like traverse the glacier alone, was because that's how boys did it.
Yeah.
And girls can do it too.
Oh my gosh, did they write that? That's so funny. I did say that.
So, like, talk to me about women in this mountain sport. Like, right now, it's like kind of heavily swung to men. Probably because, like, men are fast. Like, they've got fast times to put up on mountains. But, like, where is our spot as women, and why is it important that people like you are talking about these big attempts?
Wow. That's a
huge question, yeah.
To think about with that. Why is it important? I think it's important because women, I don't think, need extra help to do the same kinds of things. And I also think women are very good athletes. Like, there are some women I know that are amazing athletes. And from my experience, I feel like, at least on these big mountains, and I could be wrong, so I'm just speaking from my own experience, but it's just been there's more culture around men, like racing each other for the time. And I don't know why there haven't been as many women, but I think there's just opportunity that is missed if there's not women in the sport. And so I think it's important to open doors and inspire women to, and also really like to make sure that we know we can do the same kinds of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that alone is like one reason. And also, like, I want to put this the right way, but I think women are allowed to be competitive with each other. And maybe it's been more male dominated to compete against each other for things like these FKTs. And I think it's kind of cool to be like, I'm going to try to beat this girl's time. Like, and I don't hear that as much. And I'm inspired by that. So I think there's room for that maybe there hasn't been room before. And I'd like there to be more room. So I think that's maybe how I'd answer that.
Yeah, totally. I think too, like, something I'm just thinking of now is like growing up, just like being out fishing or on the mountains or hiking. Like, I remember being praised as like, oh, you're a girl out here doing this. Like, just being there was special because I was a girl. But I think it's like more important that we realize, like, looking to people like you and Kelly Halpin and Jen Denton.
I love
like
them.
You guys are amazing mountain athletes. And it isn't just enough to be up on the mountain. Like, we have the capacity to also be competitive and to go after competitive times. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring.
And I think I'd also add to that, like, even the women you named, Kelly and Jen, when I think about them, they are not just runners or you know, they are mountain, like they're very well rounded. Like Jen can put in a ski booter like you've never seen, and she can climb up some ice. And I think that all around like mountain athlete is really cool to see women. And just like you said, just I think I think there's space for that. I think that is very inspiring to me when I see people like that. So yeah, I would agree with what you said about the fishing. I empathize. So
yeah. So talk to me a little bit about like your background in swim and how like that competitive nature that you developed there both has hindered or helped you in this mountain sport world.
Great question. I grew up swimming, and I played a lot of sports growing up, but swimming I just flocked to it. I was good at it. It was very I liked how detailed it was, and it was very, very regimented. It was very strict, like the practices, and I really think I liked that actually. But when I got to college, I swam in college, and I went to the Olympic trials in 2012, and I qualified for them in 2016. But I did not go in 2016 because my relationship with the sport had kind of like dwindled. And I think a lot of that has to do with the competition aspect of it. In college, I love college swimming. Those are my best friends to this day, my college swimming friends. But it was so cutthroat. Like, I remember for a relay, there was a 200 medley relay, and there were 3 of us that could have been on the relay. And one of them was one of my best friends and my roommate. And then another one was also a good friend. And they put the 3 of us in the pool and in front of the whole team, and we had to race each other for the spot. And it was so anxiety inducing, and it felt like so much pressure. And it just, I remember kind of hoping they didn't do very well so that I could get on the relay. And that is not a great place to be if you're like hoping someone doesn't do well, or if you doing well and someone doing better, having a better time takes away from you. Like that's not, in my opinion, that was really unhealthy for me. And I just didn't have a lot of joy in competition anymore. So I think after college swimming, I really struggled with like who I was outside of swimming. And I still had a bit of an unhealthy relationship with competition. And I don't know why that was. Like, it was just like wanting to be the best, and it was all about like being the best and who could get their hand on the wall. I mean, swimming is so cut and dry. Like, it's hundredths of a second between glory or devastation. And there were times when, like, my parents probably would say this, like, it was the difference of like 0.1 seconds whether Anna was going to be elated or a wreck. And just attaching myself to my worth to that was not good. And I think that was really hard to grow out of, and I really had to think about that for a long time. And I still have to think about it to this day, even with the FKT. Like, when I finished, I said I was kind of disappointed because it wasn't like the exact time I wanted, but it was so liberating to be like, no, it's the body of work that we put into this that is amazing. And like, I put myself out there and I enjoyed it. And that transition, I think, is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Like, being able to transition from mindset 1 to now.
So it kind of sounds like you changed your kind of putting your self-worth, instead of putting your self-worth in like the outcome, it was more of like, I'm placing my self-worth in this body of work that I just completed and the experience that I've just had. type of thing?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And especially with these mountain sports. I mean, I arrived in Utah. I didn't know anything. Like, I took my Abby 1. I didn't have a lot of friends. I remember I got to the climbing gym the first time, and I had never been to a climbing gym. I didn't know that you had to follow like the colors in 2020.
Yeah. You're like blue, red.
And I remember I saw a girl climbing like something that was harder than me that I couldn't get up. And I had this wave wash over me that reminded me of swimming that was like, why is she climbing harder than me? Like, why, you know, I look stronger, or like, I think I should be better. And I really hated that I thought that. But I remember someone said to me, you need to do these things more. Like, you need to practice, you need to learn. And I think sports had always maybe come easy to me, like just being athletic in general. And since 2020 till now, I have put so much time and effort into learning, and I've been humbled, and I have realized how much I don't know, and how much there is to learn, and how you'll never know everything about everything.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to mountains and risk and things like the technical aspects of Mont Blanc. Like, for me, being able to lead that section of ice the first time we did Mont Blanc was a huge like growth for me, because I didn't know how to do that when I moved here, and it wasn't hard ice. Like, I'm sure an ice climber would be like, that's nothing. But it's things like that I think have drawn me into mountain sports. It's like, you have so much to learn, and you always will. And I think that's something to be proud of, like different skills. And I don't think I had that in swimming quite as much. So, like, there's still so much to learn, and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah. And I think mountain sports tend to lend themselves to that mindset too, just because it does fill your cup enough to just have a fun day in the mountains.
Yeah.
And so bringing the aspect of competition and like performance into it almost just feels like a little bonus.
Yes.
So there's also kind of that aspect to mountain sports that maybe makes it a little bit more healthy.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I was really not sure about doing the FKT, because I wanted to protect the progress I had made with my self-worth, and not attaching it to a time or some accomplishment that other people were impressed with. And I think I actually had been doing that for the last couple of years. Like, I think a little part of me has wanted to be competitive again, because I remember me when I was a kid, how much I loved to compete and how much like it was just fun. And I think there was a lot of like mourning the loss of that after college, like the loss of the joy of competition. And so in Utah, learning the mountain sports, I kind of was like, oh, I don't want to compete. I'm not going to enter a race. I don't do that. And I think part of it was protecting my own ego from getting let down, like from that pain of disappointment that I felt so much in swimming. And so, yes, mountain sports are really fun. It's fun to go out with your friends. Obviously, the people you're with are what matters more than anything, and those experiences are most important. But it's okay to want to compete. And doing this Mont Blanc FKT, I think, has shown me that there is room for competition in my mountain, my eclectic mountain collection of things that I do want to pursue. And I think I can do that in a more healthy way now. But even today, like, I just, people have asked me like, oh, what do you want to do next? And I just want to be really careful with my own like heart and make sure that no accomplishment defines me or anyone. And it's like the work and the journey to get there. It sounds so cliche, but that is what I'm most proud of. And that's just a happier place to be, I think.
Yeah. So maybe for people who are listening who kind of identify with my self-worth kind of lies in my performance, how did you make the switch? Like tangibly, you can't list all of the steps that you made, but like where is some place you can start to kind of move your mindset over?
That's hard. I think I need to think. Obviously, I was in a very unhealthy place after swimming. So I think taking some time away from that, and this might be hard to relate to, but after that back surgery, that identity I had of myself being an athlete was gone. Like I was told I was not gonna be walking quite as much. I had a doctor ask me if I was okay not moving my calf muscle again.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I know. And
what did you even say?
I said, no, I'm going to be using a different surgeon. I remember looking at him and I was like, what? I was like, I'm not like your average patient here, buddy. Like,
also, like, why does the average person just like palate that though? They're just like, oh, never move my calf again.
Well,
sure.
I mean, I think you would just lose a little bit. Like, I know after people get their ACLs, they have to take a hamstring sometimes, and I think that that leg is not as strong. Okay. So maybe there would be like a little, but to me, I was like, absolutely not. Yeah. So I went with another surgeon, but there was like a period of time where that identity of an athlete was taken away from me, and I was actually kind of forced to rethink life in general and what I was without sport. And I think now I would say I'm someone that, like, if you took sports away from me, I would be all in on something else. Like, I'm just someone who needs to have a passion that I'm working on, and I enjoy that. And I think what I learned is one, your athletics can be taken away from you very easily, but as far as like steps to move from like an unhealthy place to now, is I was talking to my dad, I think a year ago maybe, or maybe it was my mom. I don't know which one. Sorry, mom and dad. Parents. And they told me that they tried to make sure when we were kids that they always prided us or told us they were proud of us for our effort, not for the outcome. And that just really stuck with me. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this like a few years ago? And I don't know why I think about that all the time. It's like the effort that you put in, not the outcome. And so even if you don't win, or even if you're not climbing the hardest grade, or you don't get the time, there's something so amazing about being like, I put everything of myself into this. Yeah. And that is so much like that. If you can try to get there, I think that's a good start. That's kind of like a big thing. I don't know if I have like little tips, but I think just like every time you're down on yourself, I guess I do have a tip actually. So every time I start to kind of like slide into that mindset of like, why did they go faster than me? Or like, you know, I need to be this good. I ask myself why I'm feeling like that. And a lot of times I can talk myself back into reminding myself like, that's not me. And it's just the fact that I'm out here trying is what matters. And so I think I have to, a lot of therapy probably, I suggest, a good therapist. But like any kind of like negative self-thought, especially when it relates to like athletics, I think it's really important in your own head to have a dialogue and challenge it and ask like, where is that coming from and why? And a lot of times you can kind of realize that it's not a real thing, and you're still amazing and worthy and valuable with or without any accolade. And I think that has made competition more fun for me because it's like, I'm going to try as hard as I can. And if it ends up great, amazing. And if it doesn't, I'm proud that I tried. And that's a lot more like how I was when I was really young as a kid. So I think that's my tip. That's my armchair psychologist tip.
Yeah, I think it's important too because like keeping the sanctity of your own competition allows you to like feel the community that like competition brings too. Because like races are fun because you have 100 people doing it with you. Or FKTs, like physically Jack wasn't there. Physically, like the girl that did like the round trip FKT wasn't there with you, but there was probably a sense of community and like a weird trying this. So yeah, that's a really good point. I'm mad at myself for not mentioning that too, because like none of these things can be done without other people. And just like there's like all the times you went out with your friends or whatever, like that is more important, you know, like and it's so easy to forget that. So I just think reminding myself of that is important too, because a lot of times I tend to do things by myself. Like I'm a little bit I'm an introverted extrovert, I'd say. Like I recharge by myself. I usually like to go out at my own pace and things like that. But every time I go with a friend or something, I wish I did it more. And so I think doing that kind of thing also is very important to remind you that there's a lot more to life and you and your life than your sport and yourself.
Like in your own goals, like so that's a good point. Well,
thank you so much for coming. I want to be respectful of your time, so if anyone is looking to kind of follow whatever your next like race or FKT attempt or even just like mountain adventure is, where can they find you?
Oh my gosh, you can find me on Instagram. It's Anna.DeMonster. Like my last name is DeMonte. So it's DeMonster, DeMonster. I'm basically Instagram. That's like where I am. I don't do like anything else. So
cool.
Yeah. And I have some funny TikToks if you find me on TikTok.
I'll link both of those below in the description.
It's not a great TikTok, but I'm working on it.
TikTok is actually so hard.
Yeah, it's so hard. But I'm excited. I'm going back over to Europe, and I think there's some exciting things. So if anyone listening to this is in Europe, I'd love to meet up.
Cool.
And make friends. But thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited about this episode. Yay. I'm like, I want to drop it like tomorrow. I'm so stoked about this.